3 years we have been considering the general theme of building God's orchestra from the nations of the world. And last year the topic was Together in This for the Glory of God. Many of you have demonstrated such spirit. This year I want to focus on building God's kingdom from the nations of the world. But the topic this year is not about us, but about God. When I take this statement seriously, as I guess you also will, it helps me to evaluate my individual contribution, not as your pastor, but as a servant of God in building God's kingdom. As I do this, I recognize my inability to do anything of my own strength, and constantly I'm led to God in submission and surrender. Not by commitment, because commitment dictates what I want to do, but in surrender I offer myself into God's hand. Allow me to deviate from what is in front of you. There are times when we have the best of our desires, but we do not measure up to standards of people. If that is the case, enable each one of us, or encourage each one of us to do better, because it's not about us, it is about God's kingdom. As I reflect on this in times of joy and in times of sorrow, I recognize that we have lost loved ones among us, members of our parish and people affiliated with us. I have listed the names of Fred and Audrey, and I ask that we stand for a moment of silence in recognition of their contribution among us. Please sit. May their souls rest in perfect peace. Not about us, but about God. Daily I recognize that my loaves and fishes are not worthy of what God expects. And I struggle with it. And I'm sure you all struggle with it one way or the other. I recognize sometimes your expectations and what you are used to is not what you experience. But if we are together in this building God's kingdom, each of us must offer to provide and subsidize for the areas of weaknesses, so that together we can all achieve the goal of building up God's kingdom. It is unreasonable that within a community of 12 or more people with more and diverse talents, for that community to rely upon one person. It behoves us that we must garner our energies, that instead of 1 or 2, we can be 12 or 20, 30 or 40, and by God's grace, we can move to where God expects us. So I want to propose, after we have looked at so many years of, I'm not going to give you a long report today, you can read it. I want to propose to us that the various committees and ministries of this church, we should be able to present to each one of you through your strongholds to belong to one of the 3 ministries that we have identified in this church. So that even though we do activities, each of you will be involved in the ministry for the expansion and growth of Epiphany. What I mean by that, some of you are very good, possibly men of Epiphany, women of Epiphany scholarship. We want to divide our entire ministries under the 3 leaders, the 3 ministries that we identified 2 years ago, and we have not fulfilled them. Once we do that, we'll be able to make progress, and the progress that we make will be towards the growth of our parish. As I reflected, I see that there are 1 or 2 points which I want to mention. For the whole of last year, we succeeded. We had 1 member, in the person of Elsie Fletcher, who is sitting over there. Please put your hands together. Was attracted to Epiphany and is now a pledging member of Epiphany. The second point I want to mention from my report is that we had a legal suit. And many of you may not know that, but the Vestry knew that. From the renting of the parish hall, we realized that one of those that we serve who has been part of our clientele took us to court because he felt that we had not given him enough years. The Vestry and I are on top of this. Once we had a summon to go to court, we contacted the diocese. The diocese gave us one of the church officials who introduced us to a law firm. The firm is a little expensive though. But the good news is that we have reached settlement. Apart from what we would pay the lawyers, there is no financial commitment to the one who took us to court. He took us to court for 30,000. We will give him the use of the facility as we have decided. I wish you would honor our decision because we felt that was the best decision we could make in the light of that. We now have a healthy relationship with that individual, and he's already booked for the use of the hall, and he's going to continue to book the use of it. Because if we have legal suits against us, we may be losing our integrity in terms of the parish hall. Offend one, you offend all. So that's the second thing I wanted to report here. We continue to struggle with Bible study and other ministries. You know, we need to spend time hearing God and hearing God minister to us. So I want to just make an appeal. Every Wednesday, if you phone in, you will get us. The biggest we got this year was 11, in which we had 6 people present and 5 connected by phone. We are going to improve the system so that you can have the Bible study before the Wednesday of our study. And where we end, we will continue from that. I also want to bring us to the global perspective of the church. Since the last time we met, the diocese has been working, and right now the diocese has now arrived at the strategic plan. The strategic plan is in your report, which you will see because there is a 12-month trial period for implementation. I cannot answer all the questions, but as of yesterday, an appointment has been made within the bishop's staff of one who will be responsible to implement the strategic plan. Down the line, we are going to have deans for each of the zones, clergy or layperson who will be responsible in making sure that the strategic plan is implemented in the 8 zones of the diocese. And the bishop has championed this, and for this we are grateful. I want to round up by saying it's not about us. It's about God. Each of us, if we give our best, if we do all that is required of us to do, God will make us successful. I want to invite you for a moment to listen to the presiding bishop as he makes the presentation to us by video. And then we will look at the questions quickly and round up. as the church becomes the Jesus movement, oriented around the gospel of teaching the way of love and revitalizing. And if you look at it, there are some questions. How do I become loving? Who needs liberating and help? Who needs justice? Ask God, how would you like me to serve in these 2 hours, at least a week, 2 hours, at least a month to start off with, but 2 hours somewhere where we can be part of the Jesus movement. And to revitalize Epiphany Church, how do we become active in the Jesus movement? How do we become loving? Who needs liberating and help? Who needs justice? And then spiritual temperature. How is my spiritual life? Do I read the Bible in a disciplined way? How is my prayer life in the church? How is my prayer life? Who do I pray for and who do I pray with? How often do I pray for myself, for others? What prayer warriors do I know? One of the weaknesses of the Episcopal Church is in this area of prayer. We don't know how to pray. But I pray God will give us the freshness of His Spirit, that we will learn how to pray. And to learn how to pray is to learn how to walk. The first few steps we will stumble. But as we persist, our legs get stronger. And there needs to be justice. And realizing that time is fast spent, my challenge to each one of us is to do our best for the glory of God. It's not about us. It is about God.